Unscripted.
Unshackled.
Uncouth.
What you're about to hear is for mature ears only.
It's Miguel Fuller.
I would show anything. I'd show my hee-hee and my hoo-hoo and my ha-ha.
Holly O'Connor.
Hey, Daddy, you want to take this to the bedroom?
And Scotty the Body.
I am officially not only the grill daddy, but I'm a hot grill daddy.
Oh, wow.
It's the Miguel and Holly Uncensored podcast.
Only from Hot 101.5, Tampa Bay's new hit music.
Hello and welcome to another Miguel and Holly Uncensored.
Hello.
Holly, how are you doing?
Quite well, thank you.
Wonderful.
Just hanging out. I thought for a second I might continue that British accent for a while, but I won't.
Then you get stuck, and then you
I
have to
know.
continue doing it.
then I was like, I'll do it the whole time.
You're
I'll
like,
do it. Don't tempt me.
No.
So I'm fine. I'm good. It's Wednesday.
Whenever someone says I'm fine, it usually means they're not
I know,
fine.
but I actually am. I'm pretty decent.
Oh.
I do have one tidbit, but I'm like afraid to say it,
Oh,
which is why I should feel like I should probably say it.
Oh.
yeah.
I'm reading this book.
Oh, dear. Probably need to get the yoga sound effect.
Oh. Really? Okay.
Is it?
No.
Hold on.
No,
No?
it's not the yoga sound effect.
Oh.
No.
Oh, is it a...
Get the X-Files theme.
Oh, wow, okay.
We're talking about aliens here now?
Wait,
You're reading an alien book?
Just wait a minute.
Okay.
Just let me get the
Planet?
actual title.
Okay.
I'm just hold on, judgment for a minute, okay?
For a second.
I'm not saying anything about anything. I'm just reading a book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Book is called Escaping Eden. Oh no, I lost it.
Oh,
No, I don't want to do that. I want to go back to the thing.
Nice nails,
Escaping
Holly.
Eden. Oh, hey, thanks. Escaping Eden. Why can't it's so small?
what is going on?
What is this
Hold on.
book?
While you're looking at that, if you want to see the Miguel and Holly Uncensored, our podcast, you can hit up the Miguel and Holly YouTube channel.
Ah, I got it.
You can see
Ah.
Holly's nails.
Oh, they're just painted, by the way. I usually just do press-ons lately. It's called Escaping from Eden. Does Genesis teach that the human race was created by God or engineered by ETs?
Okay.
All right, so let's take a second and unpack this.
I just said, like, I don't even want to.
No, there's no judgment. I
Well,
just
there's-
want to understand.
Okay.
We're trying to figure out if, was it man or the earth or what was it?
It's either God or extraterrestrials.
That did what?
That it is Genesis, the first book of the Bible.
Uh-huh.
Does it tell us that God engineered humans
Mm-hmm.
or was it aliens?
Okay, so Holly, in this book,
Yeah.
What have you discovered so far? How far in are you?
I'm like a third of the way through.
Uh-huh. And what have you gleaned from this alien/God book?
Well, here's the thing. I don't want to upset anybody.
No.
So I'm just curious. I saw a TikTok of this girl who was like, but aliens are in the Bible. For some reason, I'm like on, like, you know how you're on different TikToks?
Mm-hmm.
I also happen to be on like some weird offshoot of like religious TikToks where this
dear.
girl ended up being like, I always thought that aliens were part of the Bible. And now this book really was like a crazy, like, you have to read this book. And I was like, I'll bite. Right. So I read the, like, you know what, and on Amazon, or not on Amazon, but like even if you Google a book, you can start reading like the first chapter of the book.
Right.
So I did
Yeah.
not want to invest money into this
No.
utter nonsense. So I started reading the little preview on Google. And from the preview, I was like, shit, I'm hooked.
God.
Oh, here we go.
I spent $8 to get it on my Kindle.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get into all of it because it sounds really insane.
I mean, Holly, you can't just leave us hanging like
I'm
that.
so
Well,
hanging.
I'm telling you, the TikTok did. So, like, if you want to read it, the book's there for you.
I mean,
Oh,
what?
okay.
No, just what's the premise? What was the TikTok?
Oh, well, okay. So the main thing, and I guess the main thing, the TikTok was just like, are there aliens? And I, as a good, like, conspiracy person, I was like, that sounds interesting. I'll bite. But the reason why it was interesting, so I was like, that's not possible. Like, why would that even be something that people think? Like, at first it was like, that's how it was for me. I was just like, that's banana sandwich. Like, no, we're not doing this. So that's why I actually looked it up, because I like to look at things that I don't off the bat agree with.
Yeah.
Because I either want to disprove it in my head or give it some legs in my head so that I can make my own decision. And maybe that's just how I go about research. Like, I read something online that gives me pause and I'm like, is that real? Which, by the way, actually, that's a quality that I wish more people had.
Right.
You read something either inflammatory or crazy or something that makes you angry. You read it, or even something that you like a lot, but maybe it's like slamming some other thing. If you see a meme on Facebook, do some research on it. And when I say that, because like the last podcast we talked about, sometimes it's difficult for people to know how to do the research.
Yeah.
I do a Google search. I go to several different vetted sources. And so I did this Google search. And since in the TikTok, the girl was pointing to this one particular book, I was like, all right, this seems like too crazy. So let me just, since they had the passage. So it all boils down to what this guy that wrote the book has boiled it down to. Is there's like a couple different interchangeable words that the book of Genesis uses for the term God. Yahweh, Elohim. And so in Genesis, like if you were to ask any Christian or actually a Jewish person, you're like, okay, well, what does that mean? And they're going to tell you that those words are interchangeable. It's God, Yahweh, Elohim. It all means the same thing, the one source that is God.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm following you. I got it. And then this guy was like, but have you ever noticed it doesn't always make a lot of sense? Like when God is having a conversation with himself, like there's instances where the word Elohim particularly sounds like a plural noun instead of a singular. And he's like, and I've asked, oh gosh, my ex is calling me. I'll have to call him back.
Oh.
So it's like you think about it as like a singular, and obviously that would mean singular if you interchange it with God or Yahweh. But he's like, but there's a lot of instances where this one word, Elohim, is used and it sounds like it's plural. So this whole thing, it hinges on the word Elohim. And he goes through like the linguistics of like Aramaic and like Sumerian and all this stuff that might be boring for somebody, but it's like actually weirdly interesting for me. And so he's starting to build his case on the fact that there's like a lot of anomalies in Genesis where it doesn't make a lot of sense when they use the word Elohim to make it mean God, because in one part it's like God and Elohim and they're like talking to each other and he's like, what does that mean? And then everybody's like, oh, just get that, don't worry about that part. Skip to the good part. Like a lot of people just kind of ignore those anomalies because they're like, it was written a long time ago. We're not going to worry about it. But he's like, well, I'm worried about it. This guy's like a pastor or was a pastor. He's like, I wanted to do more research on why it sounded plural. And then like long story that is now even longer, short. He went ahead and was like, I'm going to treat it like it's a plural. And if you treat it like it's a plural, now you're dealing with the Elohim, which is like sky people or powerful ones, and also God. And they're having a battle against each other. Then it explains why, how, where it's coming from. And like I said, I'm only a third of the way in.
Oh.
So that's my light reading that I'm doing.
So are you beginning the thoughts of thinking that it was aliens that
I can't say yet because I can't say yet because I'm only a third of the way in. Will I say that he's presented some good arguments? Yes. Will I say that, if you grow up in the Christian religion, like you're taught that you can't even question it like this? Yes. Which then makes my slightly rebellious side want to be like, well, why I want to do it. Now you told me not to do it. Now I want to do it. So I don't know. It's like the entire thing is like a moral, ethical, dogmatic struggle, but I just find it fascinating that anyone's even talking about it. So I guess that's what fascinates me more.
I always remember thinking growing up that it was frustrating that you could not even question the existence of God. And I was always like, but I have questions. Like,
I
it
have
doesn't
questions.
compute. Why can't we ask these questions? And then it's, well, we're supposed to believe on faith. And so it just brings in like so many different questions about
that
it.
you can't get answers to.
Right. Which I was just like, well,
And
I'm
like, I
done.
mean, technically, yes, you can like if I were to go ask questions to like my local priest or whatever, I'm sure we could have a sit down. And now as an adult, like as a kid, I
Mhm.
couldn't ask these questions.
Right.
But as an adult, I probably could, but I'm gonna get the church answer
Right.
because they're members of the hierarchy, right?
Mhm.
So that's a little frustrating. So then you have to kind of go outside to get some other, even like other answers that may not be, in line with what the church says. But then it's like, I'm not allowed to do that. I just have to put those questions aside. And I'm like, as a logical, curious person, I've always had these questions. And like one of the ones that's addressed partway through, and this is very brief, I think they only spent like a sentence or two on it, but something that I've literally struggled with for almost all of my life. And I think I've joked about it on the air before. I'm like, oh, well, when we're asking about God, is it like the Old Testament, like, fire and brimstone God? Or are we talking about the New Testament, Father of Jesus God? Because those are two very different gods. And I think anybody that has spent any time reading the Bible can see that.
Right.
If you read the Old Testament, God don't play.
Mhm.
He gonna send a flood and f you up
Mhm.
if you do some shit. New Testament God is very much like a loving, all-encompassing. They're t it's two different entities,
Mhm.
and I can't question that. But,
Right.
like, I've always had that question in the back of my mind where it's like, "Oh,
How?
at some point, God must have had a change of heart. What? This being is all-knowing and omniscient and omnipresent. He had a change of heart? How do you just change it?"
Right. Who convinced him? Was there a talk show host that was like, "Here, let me present some new points to you"?
I don't know, but again, like you would yeah, I just have so many questions, and that's one of the things that this book is addressing, but, like, I haven't gotten to that part yet, but it's like, where did that split come from? And I'm not saying that God doesn't exist because I haven't gotten to the good part yet,
Mm.
but it's like those stories of Genesis, and the whole book obviously is about Genesis, the first book of the Old Testament, where they talk about like those stories that we're all familiar with, Noah and the ark and the great flood, and the Tower of Babylon, and they tried to get to God, but then they got different languages so that couldn't happen. And the other interesting point is that those stories have shown up in other cultures that predate Christianity.
Mm,
And so it's very interesting. It's interesting to me reading. And I'm not saying like it's this is the problem. I'm scared to talk about the fact that
yeah.
I'm even reading it.
Mm. I know that I just recently saw a TikTok or someone's Insta story where I guess it was like what they showed in a science class about how big our universe is. Like it's a video where it shows the size of Earth
Oh
and the
yeah, I
moon, and
think I
it
saw something
pulls
like
out.
that.
Yeah, and it pulls out and it pulls out and it goes to the universe. It's like, whoa, like
It's like too much for our brains to compute.
it is. But then to me, it just goes to show that our universe is so big, we are not the only ones here.
There's no way.
And over the course of the past year or two, we've seen reports of, well, the government knows the existence of UFOs, and it's sort of like been trickling out a little bit here and there.
Well, they put the reports out. Interestingly, in the middle of a damn pandemic, so everybody was like, "I ain't got time for aliens right now. I'm trying not to
Mhm.
die."
Right.
They're like, "This is a great time. Let's just sneak this out." So, I don't
Scott,
know.
what do you think?
I
Why do
mean,
you look nervous?
No, not nervous at all. Well, certain things I don't spend much time thinking because it hurts my brain. But like, I definitely have like in my head, like no doubt there's something else out here. Like when I think of space, and I try to get in conversation with my brother because my brother is ridiculously smart and like reads a ton about these kind of things. And like when I have conversations about him and like things about space, it blows my mind of just trying to conceptualize like how grand space is, and then the concept of time and why space is never end, and like all these things.
Yeah, it's
So
much.
in my head, I'm like, there's no doubt we are. That would be selfish to think that we're the only ones in this entire universe that just okay, that's it, just humans. No, 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 no. I have no doubt in my mind that there's something else out there. Will we ever experience it? I don't know. I think it would actually be kind of interesting too. I think it would bring literally a whole new world into our world if there was something else that we could interact with. I don't know what that would look like. I don't know if it would be violent. It might not be. They could be huge. They could be little. I don't know. But I think there's something else out there for sure.
I mean, even when you think about construction in Tampa and St. Pete, and I think about, we are doing a lot of construction on our bridges or, doing overpasses to try to like relieve congestion. And you have these big towering structures that, they start building on the opposite ends of like a long way and then they connect.
Mm,
And to me, I'm always like, obviously that is science and
Mhm.
those are numbers and there is an equation that they use,
physics and
physics that make that happen.
Yeah.
But like, who thought of that? Like, where was the inspiration from? Like, I am just a normal mortal, I don't have my brain doesn't specialize in those numbers. I can't look at it that way. And so I always wonder, like, how did we like the evolution of people, of our society, and how we went from, you know, when we think of the past, we think in like black and white. Like when you think of like the Civil War, you don't think of like it in colors. You think of it in the pictures you've seen where it's like black and white. But like it was color. It was like their reality at that time.
yeah.
But like we go from that to now where I can tell my phone to call or text Holly who's down the street through like invisible wires.
Yeah.
Like that's how we've progressed.
Yeah.
And so to think that like there could be this alien society that was way before we even created these stories about Christianity or they started to happen,
Mhm.
like I think it's true.
Mm.
I'm not afraid to say that like I used to be, because I just feel like our generation, we question more. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's also because we have more time and we think more deeply about things because we have the time to do so.
We have the time, but we also have the capability.
Right.
Like, even think about, like, I think about when I was young, you had to go to the damn library
Mm-hmm.
and like pull out some encyclopedias, and that's all you got.
Right.
There was no extra, like, unless you wanted to go take a trip to another town to see if they had a different book.
Mm-hmm.
But now information is just in your fingers.
It's
So-
everywhere.
So there's more capability of being actually able to ask questions and get answers, I guess.
They're among us.
It's just like, y'all, I feel bad, and I shouldn't. I struggle with this, like, where I'm like, I don't want people to think this thing about me or this way about me or this or whatever.
Mm.
But then I'm also like far enough along in therapy to
Yeah.
realize that I'm going to do what makes me tick,
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
what sort of like lights my spark up.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So that's why, like, I do it. I just don't always broadcast that I'm doing it
Yeah.
because, especially nowadays, like, it's very scary out there. And maybe if I didn't have this job, I wouldn't be so scared.
Yeah,
Right.
probably not.
I think that I would be more willing to be just like give less Fs. But because we have the job that we do have where we're so held accountable by the general public,
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the bigger worry for me.
And I get that. And I think that there is a definite line that we should not cross. Like I think I literally twice or three times a week, I think about that one podcast. I think it was maybe right after the election or after the insurrection at the Capitol when I said that if you voted for Donald Trump, you were stupid. Like regret saying that, but I won't ever go back and delete that podcast because at the moment, that's where my emotions were. And that's how sometimes people on the other side feel like. And I understand that it's not the case. And I don't feel that way. That was just me in that moment being very caught up in my emotions and
Yeah.
my frustrations. And so I feel like we have got to get to a place to where you should be able to say that and not be fearful of retribution. you should be able to question. You should be able to say, hey,
As you should.
I'm curious. Like, I just want to know, like, is this a possibility? And then maybe you arrive at the conclusion that, like, you think that, yes, aliens are there. Or maybe you're like, I still believe in my God, that I believe in faith in my Catholic religion. But you should be able to explore that because then it's going to strengthen your ties to whatever it is that you believe. But if we have to walk around in secret,
Right.
and then on top of that, wherever you land on, whatever conclusion you land on, then you don't criticize other people for those beliefs and
Yeah.
you don't try to make them feel stupid for
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Because I have certain people in my life are atheists and they don't believe in religion, they don't believe in God. And whenever we talk about it, I get mad because they try to make it sound like if you believe in God, you're stupid. And I'm like, well, you're sort of to me in that moment like the very fundamental crazy Christians that come out to like the Pride Parade or they're in Ybor on the weekends with the like God hates fag signs and the, you're all going to hell.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how is that supposed to help me?
How is it different from what they're doing?
Right. I'm like, you're just shutting me down instead of being like, well, God loves you. And if you want to know more about his word, come talk to us. I'm like,
Right.
you're making people think that, you're shutting people down.
It's shutting down.
Right,
And
if-
that's the same. It's the same coin, two sides.
Right. And if we could just have respect for each other
Oh,
and
man,
just
that'd
say,
be
hey,
something.
I respect what you believe. I respect what, I hope you respect what I believe. And until either God comes down and is like, hey, it's me.
Hey, what
I'm
up?
Oprah. Or if the aliens come down and they're like, sup, bitch.
Hey,
Like,
it's
all we can do
What
is
if
just,
they all come down together?
right,
I'm just
girl. I mean, listen, we have a very big
Aliens.
universe. There's so much.
feel like
Just-
that guy on the History Channel.
Seriously. It's insane to think about. And I would just want for God or the aliens to take me back in time. Like I'm sure they can flip a switch and I just want to go back in time for a little bit and just feel what it was like. Like I think a lot about that.
About what? Back in what time?
Anytime. Like
Oh.
and this all really started watching Outlander, just the whole concept because they took it seriously and it wasn't like here's a crazy like back in the future
Yeah, not like
movie.
we're not in a DeLorean.
Right. Like they take it very seriously. Like here's this woman from the 30s back in the 1700s. And here's what it felt like, what it smelt like, what it looked like. And to me, ever since then, I've just been so fascinated by that. And it's opened up, like I've always loved history, but it's opened up this whole space in my head that I didn't know existed
Mm.
of things that I'm interested in. That's why I love watching like history documentaries now or like reading more about it because I'm just so fascinated about like 100 years ago on February 24th, what were people doing that were right here in this space where we are?
I know.
Like this building didn't exist.
no.
No.
Like none of this stuff existed right now, but like somebody was here because we're close to the water in St. Petersburg, Florida. What were they doing 100 years ago at this time?
And like to take it one step further, and especially as I'm reading this book, like they talk about these cuneiform tablets that were found a while back, from like ancient Mesopotamia and Sumeria and all this stuff. And we're talking like 30,000 years ago.
Mm,
People were living and documenting their lives, and it was
Mhm.
not like it is now. It was boring stuff. It was like transactions and dates of
Mm.
kings and like just numbers.
right.
Yeah.
But like humans existed,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and
Right.
like empires came and went, and
Mhm.
like people lived their day-to-day life, and like everything now to us feels like so immediate. Like if one person says the wrong thing, get like this is all that matters. And I'm like, we've been dealing with this for like thousands and thousands of years, and
Oh, yeah.
we don't ever think about that.
Like we are a dot.
Yeah,
We are a dot in time.
it's sometimes it's too much for your brain to really handle, so you just kind of shut it down and think about something else. But yeah,
Two
so
things.
that's how I'm doing. I
Well-
wanted to talk about that, but I didn't know it was going to come out in the podcast. But anyway,
Ah.
there it is.
No, I love it. That makes me think about my conversations that I have with the medium
Ah.
that I've
Oh!
sort of been chatting with, and we've become friends. And like we have lunch where we just talk about just life stuff, not just what she's feeling and whatnot. But I think one day I'd love to have her on the show to talk about like her concept of what her gift is and like what she envisions. because to me, I just find it so interesting because it's almost like this gateway into the bigger picture of what our daily lives and comings and goings are, if that makes sense.
Yes, because I would guess if you are a medium with a true gift, that you don't see the world the way that we do.
Right. Right.
I mean, I even just think about, and like for anybody that's like having a hard time grasping that because maybe it seems too woo woo. Did you watch the movie Soul? So
Mhm.
it's a cute, Disney Pixar film. I mean, kids can watch it. Kids don't get it. They think, "Oh, cute, a talking cat." That's about it.
Right.
But it presents those bigger pictures of like the before
Mhm.
or the after or whatever. And so even Disney Pixar is tackling this stuff. And they're making it easily digestible so that you can maybe stretch your mind in another direction real quick and then before you go back to your desk job or something.
Right.
So yes, I'm interested to see like what the lens is.
It is because I mean, some of the conversations her and I have had about past lives and about death, and it's like there are some things that I wouldn't probably talk about on the podcast or the show, personal things that I've never mentioned in the public sphere. And
Mm,
that's what she always says. She's like, I don't want to listen to your show because I feel like it's cheating and I don't want to like get something from what you said on the air
yeah.
and be like, "Oh, here's a reading." But there's a lot of things from my past that she said that it's nowhere. It's not on any social media. It's not on any broadcast I've put out into the public sphere over the past, 15 years of my career, which I find it's just super fascinating. So maybe one day we'll have to have her on the show
The show or the
or on the
podcast? I would
podcast.
rather the podcast.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
way we
So
could
we
spend
can
some time.
absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be
Scott,
cool.
how do you feel about all this?
I'm
You're
fine
being
with it.
very quiet.
No, I'm just listening. I'm listening. It's just again like these concepts and stuff. Like I don't spend again a lot of time thinking about it because I also agree. Like I'd like how everyone could just have their own mind and nothing has to be definite. Like that's how I go about my life with like religion or like mediums and all that.
Mhm.
Where I'm like, yeah, like who's to say that there's not another route? Who's to say
Right.
that there's not another vision? And I used to be someone that was very closed off to it, especially because like I remember talking about mediums and be like, there's no way. But then as I've gotten older, I'm like, who's to say that there's not? I think we doubt our abilities. I think as like just a human species to say that like, oh no, those things can't happen. It's like I don't know if they can or can't, but I'm not going to count it completely out because like I've said it multiple times. Like my aunt is a medium. Does that work in that world? And at first I was like, this is nuts. No way. She would say things that would sound just a little crazy. And then as the longer it's gone on, and the more things I've heard, I've been like, "Oh, wow.
Mm.
That's interesting. How'd you know that? Wait, you said that?" And it's just the more it goes on, the more I open my mind, the easier it is for these things to actually make a little bit of sense. But also, I don't want to be someone that shuts it out, especially like the whole religion conversation, because I grew up in a very, it's just an interesting religious world of like, I grew up Jewish, raised Jewish, got bar mitzvahed, also have a half Christian family. Like, so I've got to see a couple different sides, but I'm also like, who's to say that one has to be right over the other? And who's to say like you can't blend more? Because that's what I do. I'm like, okay, what kind of fits my life and what makes me feel comfortable going day to day? That's how I go about it. It's like it doesn't have to match up with yours. Like it probably doesn't, but it makes me feel comfortable, and that's what I believe. So I'm gonna keep it to that. And I also just don't have a lot of conversations about it because people get very defensive. They're like, if it's not
Mhm.
my way, you're wrong. And I'm like, you don't know that. There's no
Mhm.
definites. You don't know. We've only been on this earth at most like somebody at maybe 120 years.
But see, religions will tell you that though.
I
That's why
know.
people are that way.
I know,
Right.
and that's
And
the
I
thing.
get
It's
it
kind
from
of a
that point of
problem.
view too. Like I get it because I've seen it. And it's like that's going back to the very first, part of the podcast where we said you're not really allowed to ask questions because asking the question is a sign of
Betrayal.
but yeah, I was gonna say disrespect, but it's deeper than that. It's
Mhm.
betrayal.
Yeah.
And it's so rigid and so strict that it's like you have the lock on, do you want and then the lock comes down to how do you want to spend eternity?
Right.
And that's what it's about. So I
Mm,
get it from that perspective where it's like it's people wanting to do the right thing.
yeah.
Mhm.
And by that stretch is how the absolutism
Right.
comes from.
No, it's true. I mean, and I think about that every weekend. I go to Medi Weight Loss where I do my weight loss stuff, and I go there on Saturdays to get these like vitamin injections. And every Saturday morning when I go there, I drive by a women's clinic where you can have an abortion. And I see these people out there with picket signs every single Saturday morning I've gone since September. And it just makes me really sad because I always think, why can't they put those efforts into like going to the Boys and Girls Club and helping out the kids that are there? Like, these are women that are probably in very difficult, rough situations and heart-wrenching situations that they're having to make some really personal, unfortunate decisions. And like, that's not helping. Like, going to kids that are like in need, but like that's part of what they believe.
That's what they, yeah, that's
and that's
it.
their conviction, and they feel like that's what they
feel like they've otherwise why would you go out every single weekend? That seems
Right.
like a lot.
right.
But that's the thing. Like, it's not something to be taken lightly for the people that do that. Like, they legitimately feel as though it is their mission on this earth to stop that from happening.
Right. And I get it. I totally get it. It just I've literally, it's been on my heart and my mind since September every Saturday when I go.
Yeah.
And I just want to be like, y'all, there are like a million adoption agencies here. There are so many kids that would love to have, because what they're doing in their mind and their hearts is love, is they want to protect the baby. They want to, help these women make the right decisions. And I'm like, I get that, but like, there are so many kids here that are looking for that, and they're being placed into abusive homes. But anyway, that's just what I think every weekend when I go. And so I just wish that we could have definite answers, that whoever is there would be like, let me
Okay.
reveal myself.
There's obviously a reason why not.
We probably can't handle it.
I don't think we could.
We probably can't.
And I think this is part of the book too. The bigger question is, do they, he, she,
They,
do they
them.
want us to? Because that's the big thing. Like, why do you think the Tower of Babylon was destroyed? Humans were getting too close. We can't have that much knowledge. We can't have that much power. We are the worker bees.
And now
Worker bees aren't the queen.
Now we're about to be on Mars.
Like,
Scott.
oh shit, getting too close, y'all.
What's all your social media?
At Scott Tavlin, SCOTTTAVLIN.
Holly.
Send me hate mail if you must. Radio Holly on
gosh.
Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.
No, I feel like this was a very respectful conversation.
I think so. There's
And
nothing bad said.
Right.
I as a personal matter of interest, I just want to be able to read about it.
And you have that right.
Mhm. And listen, tell and answer us this, because we're not always right, either in the YouTube comments, or if you want to send me an email that I can read on Friday when we do this, Miguel at hot1015tampabay.com. Like, how do you find this disrespectful, if you do?
Yeah.
Or has this opened your eyes at all, and maybe you didn't see anything and you were expecting us to come on here and talk about boobs and
Scott's dating life.
yeah, Scott's dating
We
life.
can do that too.
Which I have some audio I want to play. We'll have to do it on Friday.
I'm so sorry. I forgot
No.
that you got all this audio, and I just ran in here with a crazy ass book.
No, it's fine. We just got to run for a meeting with Boss Man Will. But let us know, and we can chat about it on Friday's podcast. But my information is Miguel Fuller on all the social media networks. And if you want to be a part of the Platypus Posse to get a Miguel and Holly sticker, shoot me an email as well, Miguel at hot1015tampabay.com. And please leave us a review, a 5-star review, if you would, and tell us why you love it in the comments on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We greatly appreciate it. And until Friday.
Catch up with the previous episodes of the Miguel and Holly Uncensored podcast from Hot 101.5.
Just hit up the Hot 101.5 app, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Search Miguel and Holly Uncensored.